now we'll get into some confined space, and this is one of those topics that if you've ever dealt with it, you know it's a very complex thing. If you have never dealt with it, understand that there is a lot more involved in confined space than meets the eye, if you're doing it and doing it the right way. Um, we'll start with some statistics. I've always been a firm believer in the numbers. The numbers, they do not lie. Uh, and you look at this chart. This is a NIOSH study in NTOF data 800 or 585 incidents resulting in 670 deaths. This is an 80-89 stat, but the numbers don't go down. 55% were due to air quality problems. 34% were due to engulfment. And the face data of this is 70 incidents resulting, in 109 deaths in between 83 and 93, and 80% of those were due to air quality problems, and 36% were rescuers. I don't know if you were in on our last session or not, but I kind of mentioned, emergency services, whenever they show up on scene, things slow way down. This percentage, this 36% there that were rescuers, that's that's where that mindset comes from. But these numbers, you don't get to hear always nationwide statistics. You don't get to see nationwide a lot of times. You know what's going on in your world, in your community, in your area, and the places that you spend time working. But 80% were due to air quality problems, and uh, that it never should happen. It shouldn't be that way. Um, No, so let's get into it. Let's look at it here. A confined space. What is a confined space? The size is large enough and so configured that an employee can bodily enter it. The access has is limited or restricted means for entry and exit. And its design is it's not designed for a continuous employee occupancy. Um, so this could be a lot of different places. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's some creepy place that has bolts holding a big plate on it, and that it's in some big factory somewhere, and it doesn't exist outside of that. That right there, danger. Permit required confined space, do not enter. That is exactly what that sign means. Hazardous atmosphere. What is a hazardous atmosphere? How do we know that we're not supposed to go in there? Well, if it's a hazardous atmosphere, you're not supposed to go in it, and we can determine that. There's ways that we know. What is a hazardous atmosphere? It contains or has the potential to contain a hazardous atmosphere. Something that it may not look like it does, but it does. Hazardous atmosphere may be due to an engulfment issue. Contains a material that has the potential for engulfing an entrant. This picture definitely fits that process. It definitely makes that definition come to life right there. Trapped and asphyxiated. These you see these all over Oklahoma. Anywhere there's a farming community, you're going to see these big grain silos or storage containers. Uh, granaries, they call them a lot of places. It has an internal configuration such that an entrant could be trapped or asphyxiated by inwardly converging walls or by a floor which slopes downward and tapers to a smaller cross section. You know, like I said, you see these a lot across farms. If you happen to be a person that lives in and around farming community, maybe you live in Oklahoma and you live rural, and you have neighbors that farm and you see these. Something that you could be aware of just in your daily life and your daily travels, especially if you have a farm neighbor that's maybe a little older or something that way. Say you notice an old farm truck parked out here, and you know who your neighbor is. Your first thoughts are, man, he was up early and getting after it, and he's out on a tractor somewhere doing something, or he's in another truck or something. And as you're going to work, you notice that his truck's there. But then you also come back from work later in the day, you happen to notice that that truck's still there. Uh, there's nothing wrong, especially if you're in good, talking terms with your neighbor. Uh, Pull in there, maybe honk your horn a little bit, or get out and holler. Uh, Maybe for some reason today was the day that that person decided to climb that ladder on the side of that thing and get in there to check something or do something or take a moisture sample out of whatever it is that's in it, and they get trapped in there. And you might be that one thing that saved a life that day. So if you happen to notice something that doesn't look ordinary, especially around these big grain bins these days, uh, you know, be cognizant enough to think and stop and say, maybe somebody's in there, maybe something's not right. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. Oh, here's another confined space. Contains any other recognized serious safety or health hazard. Uh, you got a guy obviously in a pretty good sized pipe. I say guy, could be a female. Lots of people out there in this world, in this field these days, and a lot of young people in this field. So in here, whoever it is, uh, they're they're working on doing a weld in a pretty good sized pipe, and a couple things that if you're not familiar with maybe what you're looking at or what you're seeing, one of the things, a couple of things stand out. They're wearing an air monitor right here. This little square box right here, this says we have good air and we're good to go, or we don't. And if you also notice, if you happen to be familiar with it, this big yellow corded kind of fold up looking deal here that uh, looks like a big old pipe is actually an air supply hose. So they're pumping fresh air into where this work site is at, due to the fact that they did not have good readings and they needed fresh air. So just a couple things to kind of spark your interest there if you happen to be thinking about doing some confined space work. A confined space that does not contain or, with respect to atmospheric hazards, have the potential to contain any hazard capable of causing death or serious physical harm. Um, it's not considered a permit to work space if it hits this criteria right here. Entry into that space is the action by which a person passes through an opening into a permit required confined space. Entry includes ensuing work activities in that space and is considered to have occurred as soon as any part of the entrance body breaks the plane of an opening into the space. So if you stick your finger through the plane of a opening, whether it is on the ground, whether it is above your head, whether it is in front of you in a wall or something that way. Once you put any part of your body through that space, you have made entry. Um, that that doesn't come lightly as just, oh, but that's what the definition is. that lends itself to the fact that, there have been industrial settings where someone literally just put their fingers over the edge of an opening, and the contaminant that was inside of that opening caused them some type of harm. So that is why this definition makes very good sense, that any part of your body enters that space, that is an entry, and it could be that entry that might cause you some type of harm or injury. An emergency, it's an occurrence including any failure of hazard control or monitoring equipment, or event internal or external to the permit space that could endanger entrance. IDLH, which long term is immediately dangerous to life or health. Any condition that poses an immediate or delayed threat to life, or that would cause irreversible adverse health effects, or that would interfere with an individual's ability to escape unaided from a permitted space. Um, an example of that is a CO reading of 1200, or at H2S reading of 100 parts per million. And, you know, whenever it says immediately dangerous to life or health, that is absolutely what it means. And it also is worth mentioning this part right here, where it says delayed threat to life. It doesn't necessarily mean that the second that you enter that space and that hazard is present, that it's going to be automatic. You're going to know something's not right with you. It could be days, weeks, months, years down the road, and all of a sudden you start having problems and you don't know what's going on, and you start tracing things back to, oh, you know what? I remember I was in a situation once. So don't think that it's always an immediate thing. You're not going to instantly start glowing in the dark at everything that's considered immediately dangerous to life and health. A competent person, we talked about this earlier, is one who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in the surroundings or working conditions which are unsanitary, hazardous, or dangerous to the employees. You're a competent person. You don't have to wave a magic wand or sprinkle any kind of fairy dust over the top of you to make you a competent person. Just by being smart enough to look at things, recognize them, and know, that's what it takes. And you have the authorization to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate it. Speak up, speak out, stop somebody. There you go. All right, confined space hazards. Potential confined space hazards, atmospheric. This is the one, remember now, that gets most of us. Oxygen hazards, too much or too little. Toxic hazards, gases, vapors, or fumes. Hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide. Flammable or explosive hazards, vapors or dust in concentrations large enough to ignite. Physical hazards, engulfment, like those granaries we just showed at the very beginning here. Shifting liquid or solid substance that traps employees. Configuration, walls or floors which slope downward or taper in, they can trap an employee or a person. Other physical hazards, contact with mechanical or electrical equipment, steam or other sources of heat, moving parts or energy. Uh, you might not see this outside of a industrial setting, but then again, construction has its fair share of these things as well. So it's not exclusive uh, to industries. Um, you talk about gases, vapors, uh, hydrogen sulfide. Whenever it talks about carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, those things, it would surprise you right now at how many young people uh, in our world, and I'm not picking on the young people, but it would surprise you at how many of them that did not have an extensive driver's ed program, that do not understand that when it's cold outside, you cannot start your car in a garage with the doors down and sit in the car waiting on it to warm up for an extended period of time. So many kids nowadays do not, they don't make that connection. Excuse me. And if you've got young kids at home, or teens, pre-driving teens, these are things that maybe they know or they don't know, but it's definitely worth mentioning to them. Okay, just kind of in the back of your head, keep that in mind. Uh, Oxygen deficient atmosphere is containing less than 19.5% oxygen, and an oxygen enriched atmosphere is one that, it's more than 23.5%. Um, a good visual on that is, if you've ever gone out to do a campfire or a bonfire or something, and you know conditions may be a little bit cold or a little bit damp or whatever. So you go get you a can of gas, and you get your little 2.5 gallon can of gas, and you think, hey, you know, I'll liven things up a little bit. I'll get it to light. So you go out there and you pour a little bit of that gas on there, and you take a match and you throw it in there, and nothing happens. Well, I probably just didn't have enough gas. So you dump what's left of that 2.5 gallons out there on that wood, and you think, okay, that'll do it. And you strike match number two and you throw it in there, and still nothing happens. And then all of a sudden, match number three, you strike that bad boy, and before you can even throw it, that whole thing just poof, like a kind of like a small bomb goes off. That's that place between these two places where that atmosphere finally got right. And whenever it did, uh, man, it brought things to life for you. And so that is a good kind of explanation of maybe whenever you got, too little oxygen, or too much oxygen, or too little, your vapors off of something are too much, or not enough. The old barbecue grill, whenever that joker ignites and it clicks a few times, and then boom, all of a sudden, that was where it was waiting to make that perfect mixture. Oxygen levels, here's a good deal for you right here. 19.5% is minimal ex, acceptable oxygen level. This is a person in normal, just any normal person. This is kind of how things go. 15 to 19% uh oxygen. You get decreased ability to work strenuously. You start getting fatigued. Your coordination maybe gets a little impaired. Uh, those are kind of some of the early symptoms of that. At 12 to 14%, uh, your respirations pick up. You start breathing heavier. You start laboring more. That's where poor judgment, that's where you start making bad decisions right there. At 10 to 12, now you're making real bad decisions, and your respirations are labored. You're really starting to struggle. Your lips start to turn a little bit blue here. Start noticing physical changes. At 8 to 10%, you start having mental failure. You might faint. You might get sick to your stomach. Might make you unconscious. You might start, absolutely throwing up, get past that nausea stage. At 6 to 8%, you have 45 minutes. You might recover. There's a possibility that you could still recover at that point. 6 minutes is 50% fatal. That's a coin toss, 50-50. And at 8 minutes, it's fatal. And at 4 to 6% O2, coma almost instantaneously, and death. So, like I said before, I'm a numbers guy, and they don't lie. And that is, that's worth taking note. Here's some others you might want to know a little bit about. Carbon monoxide right here. Colorless, odorless gas, slightly lighter than air. It's a chemical asphyxiant. It's flammable and deadly. Its primary source is incomplete combustion of organic material, gasoline, fuel combustion engines. Signs and symptoms are confusion, dizziness, headaches, nausea, unconsciousness, might just feel weak. It has immediately dangerous to life and health or an IDLH of 1,200 parts per million at an 8-hour permissible exposure limit, and that's 50 parts per million. And a CO alarm point will go off at 35 parts per million. Um, as a firefighter, I'll tell you, whenever it comes to CO, even if you have an indoor dog a lot of times will notice this too. It'll affect them the same way as kind of as it does in a human. Uh, but as a firefighter, we had a lady that we kept getting a service call to her house because her CO detector kept going off, and it would go off, but it would kind of be a random deal. And so this went on for a little while, and what the last time we finally when we finally figured out what was going on, we would always ask her, "Have you been cooking?" She'd say, "No, I cooked a little while ago." But it was never a place where we felt like it was something that would have been the direct cause. And we checked the stove. And the last time we did it, before we left, the time before, we told her the next time it happens, just leave everything alone and go, and then call us. And so when we got there, what we finally figured out was going on was this lady had a mat that she was laying down in the bottom of her oven when she would cook something in the oven that was going to drip so that it didn't make a mess in the bottom of her oven. And it was trapping the gas and it wasn't letting it burn complete. And so nothing would happen until she would open the door of the oven to check it. And then as it built up, it would set the CO detectors off. And it took us a while to figure that out. But it's one of those things that can happen from something as simple as, uh, just trying to be a good homeowner and keep a clean house. Uh, take care of your appliances, and that's what caused it. So you gotta watch out for those things. And once again, like I said, kids also, let them know about these things. Kids that are driving, let them know, hey, look, you can't have a window down sitting in the car, in an enclosed area. Just keep that in mind. Hydrogen sulfide as we move on, H2S. I don't know if any of you is familiar with oil field world and the Permian Basin and everything that's going on with oil and natural gas production, but H2S is an incredibly dangerous thing out there right now. They call it the sewer gas or the stink gas. Kind of has a rotten egg smell to it, has an odor threshold of 0.02 to zero point 0.2 parts per million. It's heavier than air. It's a colorless, flammable gas. It's a strong odor, but it fatigues your senses. So what that means is that, you know, it comes on real strong at first, but a few minutes after you smell it the first time, all of a sudden you think it's gone because you don't smell it anymore. It's almost like you instantly become nose blind to it. And so it's not that it went away, it's still there. Your body has just said it subconsciously says, "Oh, I can't smell it anymore, it's gone." And that's not the case. And this stuff is deadly. It's very high concentrations. They lead to cardiorespiratory uh, arrest because of brainstem toxicity, and it affects the nervous system. So this isn't something that just gets in your lungs and is bad. This affects brainstem toxicity and nervous system. This goes deep quick. It has an IDLH of 100 parts per million, very low number, very fast, and an 8-hour permissible exposure limit of 10 parts per million with an alarm point of 10. So it's not a gas you want to mess with. We talked a minute ago about that sweet spot. Right here, here's another deal. Your lower explosive limit, and then you've got your upper explosive limits of fumes and vapors and gases, and then you've got anytime that you have an alarm system, your alarm point will be at 10% of the lower explosive limit. And so once again, you've got that right here, it's too lean to burn area. And over here, you've got that, oh, yep, too rich to burn area. Man, right there in the middle, that's where the boom happens. That's where, whenever that thing gets just right, uh, now you got something on your hands you got to deal with. Methane, CH4, it's natural gas or swamp gas. Um, Due to gas leak or organic decay. It's colorless, odorless, flammable gas. Sometimes it's, scented. They might, put something in it to give it an odor so that you'll know it's present. It has a lower explosive limit of 5% or 50,000 parts per billion, and an upper explosive limit of 15% or 150,000 parts per million. So, it has a different sweet spot than say this one right here would have. Other chemical hazards, chemical contamination of surfaces. You've got routes of entry is what are they? In a human body, skin absorption, eye contact, ingestion, and injection. Types of effects or irritation, chemical burns, systemic toxicity. Um, I was reading an article day before yesterday talking about these squishy cube things or these squishy balls that are kind of popular right now. And telling parents, to be cautious of them because they have a glycol or something in that's inside of it that depending on if a kid gets it on them, it could cause harm, skin harm. It kind of burns their skin. So if you happen to have kiddos or grandkids, you might be aware of that if it happens to break and get on their skin. Some people are sensitive to that stuff, so just kind of watch out. It's everywhere. We're talking about, earlier about the silo and the engulfment. That here's how that works. This is a good illustration of how that happens. You go to the top of this thing, and whenever this product was put in here, maybe it was damp, it was sticky and heavy, and so it kind of crusted over at the top, and then under it you might have shrinkage, and so this crust gives the appearance that it's solid all the way through. Then you step out on it, and down you go. Your weight is enough, and down you go. Well, as you go down, this breaks loose under that crust, and it just starts to fill in and around you, and it gets you to a place where it almost the quicksand effect. The harder you try to dig out of it, the further you dig yourself into it. And so you really need to, pay attention to that. If you, like I say, if you happen to know people in the farm community or that may work in that environment or something, make them aware of it. Be something worth, at least a conversation over. Uh, I've been told this was a lift station. This photograph here. What I know about it is there's water, there's a ladder, and there's electricity. None of which I want to be a part of. Uh, Whoever does that, you know what? You have all the faith in the world for me, brother. You do what you do, and God bless you for doing it. But I don't want to be part of that program. Uh, but this is one of those spaces, one of those places where you can't see through that water. You don't know what's going on down here under it. What you know is that this is a very confining space. It has limited ingress, it has limited egress, and you could get yourself in a bad situation in a really short period of time. in this environment. So if you happen to work in this environment, be careful what you're doing. Pay attention. Use all the precautions you can use as you work in this environment. Once again, configuration is it's that thing that it either uh, you know gets you and you not expect it, or uh, just by the sheer fact that you're by yourself or something, you can automatically put yourself in a situation where you can't get out. Now this doesn't look too daunting whenever you look at it, but if this is anywhere Oklahoma, and this is the you know middle of August, and you have me working in this thing, and you get trapped down here at the bottom of this, and you don't have any way out of this thing, you might as well be a fried egg. You could sit in there for hours with no water, no way to get out, nobody around that can help you until somebody notices that you're in this situation. So a deal like this, always make sure you have yourself a way out. Make sure you have a way to egress yourself before you even work in and around one of these situations. Other physical hazards, when you're in a confined space area, exposed live electrical lines, you might come in contact with moving augers or turbines that are moving at a high rate of speed, blades, pumps. Uh, there's any number of things that can entrap you. I know with the fire department when we were working, we had some mechanical rooms, and man, there were places where we had to get to in a mechanical room where we literally had to get down on our hands and knees and crawl through one area to get to another one. And the places that we were crawling were, under live steam lines that, if something happened and one of those steam lines was to, encounter damage, that could turn into a hazard pretty quick. Um, so be aware of the just where you're going to be. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a single entry porthole in the side of a machine to be considered confined space. If something happens and you're at the very back of this area here, and you know you are rendered incapacitated, uh, think about what it would take for just one other person to have to go into that area to bring you out of it. And, that alone, just the sheer difficulty of getting you in and out in an environment that is restrictive, that alone, you just qualified yourself as an entrant into a confined space. Look at this one. Confined space, things you might encounter. Uh, this is not the place I ever want to be ever in my lifetime. Whether it's one of them or 100 of them, I will pass. I never, ever, ever want to. I live in rattlesnake country. I have them at my home. Uh, I don't care. I don't want to crawl into a pipe that whenever I started into it seemed okay, good to go, and then walk into a wall or crawl into a wall of this. Never, ever. But you know what? This bad boy right here is just as bad. Brown recluse or fiddleback, or this one right here, the black widow. You know, you you could walk into a say a mechanical room that hasn't had a light on in it in 5 years. Nobody ever goes in there to do anything, and today's the day you have to go in there and do something. And you open that door, and it looks like a scene out of a horror movie. Cobwebs hanging down, bugs take off crawling in the light. Uh, Confined space. There's a hazard in there in an area that has limited entrance and limited exit. That is a confined space. So it isn't always bad air. It isn't always flammables. It could be these little creepy crawly critters right here. It could be something a little bigger. Don't know what country this is. I just know I'm not going to work there uh, because I don't ever want to go into something and find something that has as many teeth as that Joker has smiling back at me. Sorry, I'll pass. But confined space, imagine, you know, you wouldn't expect that to be a hazard in a confined space on your work site is a big old gator or a crocodile or whatever we got going on here. I know these people seem way too happy. I would not have been happy. Uh, this lady here, she's thrilled to death. She's thinking brand new handbag, I think. I don't know. But whatever the case might be, I don't want to be part of that work site. I'll pass. Confined space. You can have it. I'm good to go. Uh, yeah, I don't want to be part of that. Now, here's what everybody sees right here. This is the one. This is the confined space that everybody has. This is what they vision. You know, you got a hole in the side of something, a tank here or something, and you have to figure out how to get in it and get out of it. And basically what this is this is an entrant working in it, and this is a retrieval system. And it's configured outside of the space so that if something goes wrong, this entrant can be retrieved with someone else without having someone to go in to get them. All right, pre-planning. Let's do a little bit of pre-planning. You identify all the confined spaces that employees will enter. Determine if any spaces will be permit required, and inform exposed employees. Let them know we're going to do an entry and tag you're it. Um, I promise you, you do not want to find out that an employee is claustrophobic or has a problem with dark spaces or tight spaces after you get them 15 feet in. And it does happen. And you do not want to be on the receiving end of that deal because it goes bad super fast. PRCS entry procedure options are non-permitted space entry and permitted space entry. Alternate procedures, you can change certain things about it and it changes how you handle the space. You can reclassify the space at some point, something may change that you can reclassify it. And or it may just remain a permit entry that you can enter it, but you still have to do a permit in order to be able to make the entry. This is just an example of what a confined space entry uh, form looks like. And I will tell you, if you ever have to encounter a confined space and you're going to make entry into one, uh, I would find a form that at least has this much stuff on it, and I would fill it out like I was filling out for lottery winnings. I would put everything on there I could possibly put on there. I would track it. I would triple it. I would duplicate it. I would do everything I could do to make sure that everything during that whole process of a confined space entry was documented. Document it, document it, document it. If it's not on paper, you can't prove that you did the right thing or the wrong thing. If it's on a sheet of paper, you can prove this is what we did. And we were doing everything right and something still went wrong. So always make sure you have a good entry sheet. Make sure your form is good to go. Entering a non-permitted space, evaluate the space to verify that no hazard exists. Conduct atmospheric tests to verify a clean atmosphere. Okay, how do we do that? You take an air monitor and you monitor your air. You check it. You start at the very beginning, at the top of it, and you work your way down. And you give yourself 5, 10, 15 minutes of air monitoring. Make sure it's clean. Then you go down to another level and you check it 5 feet lower. And then you go down to the bottom at 10 feet or whatever. You check it again. Or if you're going in, through the side of something, you put a monitor, put a hose on it, and let your sniffer go in, and you check as you go back to the back towards the back of that space, and you check it. Make sure you're getting good readings. If you're not, then you know that you have to kind of change how you're going to approach it, and you have to change how you're going to put people in it. Complete a pre-entry certificate to document the space evaluation and atmospheric test results. And then you can enter the space. Something I would always recommend if you're going to do a confined space entry is to make contact with local emergency services, whoever they are, whether they're rural volunteers, whether that's a city municipal fire, whether it is an EMS only. Let someone know that you're going to be doing a confined space entry and find out what they are qualified to do to help you. If something goes bad, you want someone there as rapidly as you can get them there. And so you need to know what their qualifications are. They might be a full-fledged fire department, but they may not have the capabilities to go in to a confined space to perform a rescue. So you need to know what they're capable of. And they need to know that you're going to be in there doing something. So let them know whenever you're going to go in and start. Let them know whenever you're done at the end of the day, hey, we're not in there anymore. That is something that is not only a courtesy to them, but it also is a good safety net for you as well. Always entering permit spaces using alternate procedures. Enter using alternate procedures is allowed for permit spaces that have had all physical hazards eliminated or isolated so that the only hazard posed is an actual or potential hazardous atmosphere. So say you're going to go into a pipeline that's just flowing water and you're going to do some work. So you know that upstream or whatever that water flow, you could go up and shut off a valve and isolate water coming into that area. That is an alternate procedure. That allows you to enter that space without having to worry about anything but air monitoring. Uh, or if air is the situation and it's the one thing that's your problem, you can add a continuous forced air ventilation. It must be sufficient to maintain the permit space safe for entry, and the entrance must be able to exit the space in the event of a ventilation system stoppage. For some reason, your fresh air fails, you got to have a way to get them out, and you got to be able to notify them and let them know that they've got to get out. Which means that if you are communicating with somebody that's in a confined space, if they are going to be far enough in that space that you can't see them or you can't talk to them with a normal tone of voice, you need to set up some type of communication system, spark resistant or intrinsically safe walkie talkies, something that will transmit at distances and around corners if they happen to have to turn and go through a complex space or area. Make sure that you always have good communications with them. And must have monitoring and inspection data, to support the fact that you're going into that space and that it is requiring vented air. Entering permit spaces using alternate procedures. Step one, ensure any conditions making cover removal unsafe have been eliminated. Uh, Remove entry cover. Guard the opening with railing, with a temp cover or other temporary barrier. So, some of these portholes in some of these spaces, the steel alone may be hundreds of pounds. So they're not all just lightweight metal that you can just pull a few bolts out of and toss it off to the side. It may require some planning just to get the entry opening open in order to get into it. So keep that in mind. Test the atmosphere with a calibrated direct reading instrument. I always suggest a 4 gas. of whatever brand you can get. Uh, Test in the following order: oxygen, flammable gases and vapors, and potential toxic air contaminants. And a lot of the four gases will give you all those readings. They do a continuous monitor and they pick up for each one of those things as they go. They give you four separate readings at the same time. Install continuous forced air ventilation to ensure air supply is from a clean source, which means that you don't want to set your fresh air ventilation up next to the exhaust pipe on a truck that's running 15 yards away. That don't fix anything because now your COs are going to continually be going off. Uh, Make sure that it's not pulling the air in that it's pushing out so that it's recycling the same air. That's always a bad day. Don't wind up in that situation either. Continuously monitor the space. Should a hazard be detected, all entrants must leave the space immediately. You can reclassify them, but a permit required confined space may be reclassified as a non-permit space if permit space poses no actual or potential atmospheric hazard. All hazards can be eliminated without entry into the space. A documented certification that all hazards have been eliminated or isolated has been made. If a hazard arises, all entrants must exit the space immediately and the space reclassified as a permitted space at that point. You can also have a space that in the process of that space in one single day, it can go from a space that requires nothing to a non-permitted hazardous space. And then from that, in the same day, it could automatically go back to a space that is now a permit required hazardous atmosphere or hazardous space, confined space. So, be cognizant and be aware of the spaces that you're going to go in. Um, Never rush. A confined space always should take you a full day of just prep work prior to entering a confined space if you do it right. And you know, just never rush into one of those deals. Just kind of a quick note also, anytime you're going to, and this is on confined space, this is on trench rescue, this is on any type of hazard. It could be inclement weather, tornadoes, whatever. If you're on a job site, you have employees out there, and you know, you you get in a situation where something happens. Know your people, know who can do what. Don't send somebody to call 911 that goes into full-blown panic mode the second things go bad, because they're going to stand there and vibrate and try to figure out how to dial 911 on a cell phone. They're not going to know what to do. They just lose all focus. uh don't assign somebody to go get a piece of equipment, to bring a piece of equipment to you, if it requires driving a piece of equipment that they don't know how to drive. Maybe it's somebody that's squeamish whenever they see blood or vomit or whatever. Don't have them be the one standing there holding pressure on an open wound if they see blood and pass out. Know your people. Know who you can assign to do what. Make sure you got calm people, people that can do what they need to do when they need to do it. Okay. That's just good rule of thumb, regardless of whatever goes wrong. And that's something you can take home with you. Because we all know home is sanctuary. That's the most dangerous place you can be. You let your guard down when you're at home. So just keep that in the back of your minds. Um, I appreciate once again, I appreciate your time and attention today. I enjoy doing these. The ones online, I wish I could see faces and names and I could remember that, because it's always good to get to see people and talk to people, and I'm very passionate about safety. Once again, as I part this afternoon, nobody takes better care of you than you, and somebody someplace loves you. Stay safe out there. Watch out for each other. Be your brother's keepers. I want to say a quick shout out, and I hope all of you show a little bit of love and appreciation to Luis and Bo out there doing this Oki virtual deal for us today. They're they're champions for the construction field. They keep us safe doing what they do, and we owe them all a good shout out. And with that, I will say my goodbyes. Appreciate it. Enjoyed it. Feel free anytime. Have questions or comments. Reach out. We'll do what we can to keep you safe. Thank you very much. Have a blessed weekend.